To discuss splitting the wood evenly and to get our parts out of a log with some sort of control, there's really a basic concept that you need to understand, and that concept is about deflection. Dave Sawyer helped me understand this. Basically what it comes down to is this. This piece here, if we were trying to split off this little part right here on the side, well, it's quite obvious that as I pull on this, it's going to break. And it's going to break outward in that direction. Okay? But the real thing that's happening here is that there's an uneven deflection happening when we do bend it. In other words, this part, even if I pull on it, isn't bending or deflecting as much as this. Therefore, the split will run that way. Okay? So basically, if I pull on them evenly, it's still going to run out that side, and you can see it's just going to pull right off. And that's really what we try and control and affect while doing our splitting with the froe and the maul. I've now put the froe into our workpiece and split it relatively evenly. And I want to do this to describe exactly what the froe does, which is to exert a certain amount of leverage to try and even up that deflection that we were talking about before. So you can see, if I pull the froe this way, notice which part is actually doing the bending. Which part deflects? It's this part right here. And it's a pretty simple reason for that. That is, when I pull this way, there's a fulcrum right here. And that fulcrum is the only part that's actually touching this piece. Now, the fulcrum is here, but the lever ends up being way up on this piece. So that distance, that difference between this much on this side and nothing on that side, is what applies more force to this side. Now, if I reverse that and I go the other way, notice what happens. It's the other piece that bends, the other side of the split. Okay? That's really what we can use to help control the split, because the froe itself has a built-in leverage effect. Now, as we can see looking at this piece, this side over here looks a little bit thinner than that side, so we're going to expect that this is the weaker side and the split is going to want to run out that direction. So knowing what we now know about the leverage factor given to us by the froe, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work pulling this direction to try and get an even deflection. So I want this even curvature coming down. If that curve is even the way they both go in there, that split will run completely straight. So I'm going to just lever it this way, and we want to hear a slight little tinkling sound, a little bit of a sound there that doesn't sound like a branch breaking, see, and it just sort of unzips right down the line, because what's happening is, once again, that deflection is even as it goes in. So this sort of answers the question most folks have trouble with, which is which side should be down in the equation, which side you pull against. Well, you're always pulling against the heavier side because you're attempting to make it bend as much as the lighter side. Now, besides the leverage that you can exert with the froe itself, there's one other way that you can actually help to control this split to create that even deflection we're talking about. One way would be to put my hand here and pull, if that's tight enough, to pull against this to try and create more bend there just using weight. Okay? That can really help out if things are relatively even. Another method that I've employed quite often and find to be very useful is to actually support the lighter side. And if you can do this, what it does is it pushes more of the deflection to the heavy side because the light side can't move quite so much. So here, given all that we've discussed, I'm going to try and split a smaller portion off of this wide piece here. And I'm going to use my froe and some good leverage and hopefully be able to split off, let's say, 1/3 of this piece and have it go right down the fiber line. So clearly, as I drive this in, you can see that it's an uneven mass here, so it's definitely going to want to run out this direction because this little thin piece is going to deflect more. But if I can apply some force supporting it and use the leverage of the froe, I can probably get it to run somewhat straighter. You'll also notice that I'm not being too fast about this because I want the forces to be able to be affected by the leverage and not just be blown by excessive speed and force there. Alright, not too bad. It may have run just a little bit in that direction, but you can see by the length of this fiber right here that it comes down the middle that indeed I followed the fiber line pretty well. And that's really what we're trying to do, is follow the fiber line. That's going to keep the strength in the tree, and that way when we go to bend it or sit in it, we don't have to worry about it breaking because we've got those nice long fibers intact.